Hi, welcome to Head Start, the podcast for race directors and the business of putting on races. When you think of race expos, what kind of thing comes to mind? Well, if you're like me, you're probably thinking huge pre-race expos like New York or London, where you go to pick up your bib and where you get to stroll around hundreds of booths from high-profile running brands showcasing their latest thing. Well, race expos are actually a lot more common than you think, and according to my guest today, absolutely every event can and should have one. And why wouldn't yours? Race expos are an amazing way to elevate your participants' event experience, a good way to add an additional revenue stream to your race, and just about the best way to activate sponsorships and expand the roster of your commercial partnerships. My guest today, industry veteran Craig Mintzlaff, has been working on races and race expos for more than 20 years. Through his company, Endurance Sports Marketing Group, he's been managing expos for some of the best-known events and event series in the industry, and he's with us today to share some of the many things he's learned from setting up, promoting, and selling out hundreds of race expos on both sides of the Atlantic. Does your event have a race expo? Have you thought about launching one? Well, this is the episode for you. Before we go into all that though, I want to give a quick shout out to our podcast sponsor, Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up, the leading all-in-one technology solution for endurance and fundraising events. More than 22,000 in-person, virtual, and hybrid events use Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up's free and integrated solution to save time, grow their events, and raise more. Well, Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up offer, frankly, too many features for me to even enumerate here, from fundraising and email marketing, awesome race websites, a full suite of tools to help you streamline race day. The list just goes on and on. So do yourself a favor and visit runsignup.com. That's runsignup.com to see all the amazing things you can be achieving with Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up's industry-leading race technology. Okay, and with that, let's get into this amazing episode. Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on. Where are you currently based?
Sitting in snowy Bavaria in southern Germany at the moment in our European offices.
Oh, that's super. What do they do there? Sausages, beer? What's the specialty?
All of the above, absolutely. So as we're heading into the winter, we actually start drinking Glühwein, which is like a spicy, hot red wine that we have during the winter.
All right. And you have those Christmas markets, right?
We do, but thanks to our COVID situation we've had for the last 2 years, all of our 2020 and just announced last week that they're canceling all Christmas markets throughout Germany this winter. So not a good situation economically. So they already had the Munich one already set up and canceled it last week. So a very large negative economic impact on the area for sure.
Oh, that's terrible. We used to have Christmas, sort of like German-style Christmas markets in London when we lived there, and we used to love them. It's the thing to be looking forward to for Christmas.
Yeah, well, I'm sure our conversation today will definitely be bringing up COVID as it affects many events around the world, especially here in Europe and the U.S. Not quite as much, but has over the last year. So we'll see how things work out over the next year.
Right. So you've done a great number of things, actually, in the endurance event space. Lots of different stuff. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your background in the industry and all the different roles you've had?
I won't make it too long. It is long. So it began working with, if people are familiar with the competitor network magazines in the United States, they were based out of San Diego and Chicago. So I worked out of the Colorado offices. This is during 1995 through 2000. We had a conglomeration of 18 sports magazines around the country, all specific to that region, which made it very unique. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And during my process there, which we can go more into detail, is how my first business started, Ground Zero Sports Marketing Group, I farmed off and started doing expo sales for major marathons and cycling events around the country. And I did that for another 6 or 7 years, including in that time frame. We helped launch the Livestrong band when it came out. We launched the Jelly Belly Sport Bean when it came out. Many different companies that came to us to help them launch their products through sports expos around the United States. That's kind of how everything evolved. Then it took a couple of years off, worked for Rudy Project Eyewear worldwide out of the United States. And then just 5 years ago, as we had many companies that were looking to launch their products in Europe and vice versa, we started meeting different companies throughout Europe. I moved to Germany to open an office here to start working on some events throughout Europe and also help some companies, which we still do today, launch vice versa across the pond, from Europe to the US and US back here. And in the mix of all that, the last few years, working with the Haute Route cycling events around the world, mainly in the United States, because they're both in Europe and the United States. And then off and on working with, as which we do now, our largest client, the Cool Events with the Blacklight runs, the Bubble runs, a handful of about 140 events throughout the US. And then just recently, we became partners in the Nocturne Cycling Events, which will host 6 major cycling events throughout the world next year, and then add another 3 in 2023. They're based out of London, and we're helping them in London, Paris, Amsterdam, Madrid, Milan, and San Francisco. So that's puts us where we are today.
Awesome. Well, I mean, yeah, some really high-profile events there, particularly in Europe. I know those events quite well, particularly in the cycling world. Some awesome events. So you've done a few things around race expos, which is going to be the topic of our discussion today. I claim complete ignorance. I should be upfront about this. I know very, very little about race expos. Let's set the scene a little bit for for race directors who have not put on a race expo as part of their event. What are we talking about? What is a race expo? And from the point of view of the race director in the event, what kind of purpose does it serve in the grand scheme of things?
So I know many of your listeners are include large events and small events. So I'll try to speak and answer questions to cover both aspects of it. So on a purpose of an expo, I kind of made a list of mainly 3 things. To create an experience would be 1. Financial, to make money and profit off of selling expo space. And then obviously the third is for sponsorship execution. So for people that are involved with your event that want some added exposure to be on site and reach these athletes, mostly both running and cycling, during and after the event. And sometimes before too, which we can go into more detail for packet pickups that we have many of our clients do 1 or 2 days prior to the event for our large events that do a packet pickup 1 or 2 days before the event for people to pick up their packets and see clients before the event.
Right. Okay. I think that's a great summary. So basically we're saying race expos are there. They're going to make people have a better day out because, there's going to be things for them to do there. B, I'm going to make some money out of them because, I'm going to be taking some money from vendors and other people who want to actually appear in the expo. And C, it's a great place to just showcase my sponsors and help activate the sponsorships that I already have. Is that right?
Exactly. And I'll add that especially now, and it's changed over the last decade or so, with millennials, and most people know this, that events now are more about the experience than the actual run or cycling event. So definitely has changed over the years. When we did start back in 1995, we really were right at the launch of sports exos becoming a necessity or popular or a moneymaker for some of these events. It really grew very, very fast. So at one point, we were running expos for some of the largest marathons from Seattle to San Francisco to several of the rock and roll races, helping out with the Boston Marathon. And they needed our help because there's so many clients to call on and reach out to come out to these events. And the expo world grew very, very fast. As we're now, it's kind of just second nature and kind of mandatory for all events to do one.
And it's interesting, on the one hand, you mentioned all events having one. On the other one, I think all the examples that come to my mind and some that you mentioned, they're really expos for really very big events, like marquee events like the London Marathon, like Haute Route, all of those places. Is it fair to say that, even for my local 10K or my local half marathon, I can aspire to and I can work towards having an expo for that kind of event, for a smaller event?
Oh, absolutely. So our firm also owns several smaller running events in Colorado, and we work with another 20 or 30 events just in Colorado, some smaller events that may only have 500 to even 1,000 runners. And that's not necessarily necessary, but definitely a great added value for you to have a small expo. So we'll get into more details later, whether it be a local gym, a local retailer, serving beer or wine at the finish line, which has kind of become just secondary for all events if they can get an alcohol permit to have that at the finish line. Local food companies, food trucks. So everything can be considered an expo, right? Just having any type of vendors, booths, food trucks at a finish line. So yeah, anyone could do it.
Okay. And you mentioned there the finish line. I guess that's the natural place to set up the expo, right? Where people are finishing and they have a little bit more time on their hands after the race to engage with everything that I have put together for them there.
Correct. So for smaller events, yes, always have them at the finish line. That's where everyone's congregating. It's where their spectators are waiting and friends to meet them at the finish line. It's where you have your post food area. You have your bag pickup if, let's say, it was a race from A to B. So that's the finish line. The start line, yeah, we have very few vendors. If we have an event that goes from A to B, meaning it starts at one point and finishes at another, at that point, maybe you just have a coffee vendor or coffee truck of some sort, or maybe a food vendor that's there. But again, most of our smaller events all do expos at the finish line. The only difference would be the large events that have pre-expo packet pickup, whether it be the day before or 2 days before. Then they also have an expo at the finish line. And again, we can go into more details, but there's different vendors that want different things, whether their purposes of getting involved with the event, whether they really want time with them beforehand and sell them something, so they come to the packet pickup early, or at the finish line, many times the athletes don't have funds or money, so it's not really a sales aspect for clients that are looking there for return on investment by selling something. So every client's different what they need or want.
Interesting. Okay, very interesting distinction. So you're saying that basically, the large marathon expo I go to in London or New York to pick up my packet, there'd be people there who would actually not have my wallet on me, who'd want to sell me stuff. Whereas the expo I have on race day at the end of my event might be more like, as you're saying, more like, I guess, like brand awareness. Is that what vendors at that expo would be looking for?
Exactly. Brand awareness. So let's say at the finish line, it would always be your food and beverage companies. A lot of the times they go on both sides. Event marketing. So other events that are there to market their event, they like their being at the expo beforehand so they can chit chat with them longer. But many times they just want to be at the finish line so they can pass you a flyer promoting their event, their other running race or cycling event that they have later on throughout the season. So it depends on what the client wants. And that's much of what we do when we reach out to our clients. We ask them, what's the purpose of your wanting to get involved? And if it's sales, we usually steer them to coming to the day or two before the packet or for packet pickup, not at the finish line. But again, we leave that up to them what they want to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned there the among the type of vendors or people you would have at your expo, particularly for a small race, that you could have other races in your area or other people who may have an interest in passing on some event details to your finishers. So that's already something that any event can look forward to, right? I mean, it's not particularly hard to find some events in your area and work with them to be part of your race expo.
Absolutely. So you brought me aboard to come up with some ideas and some suggestions. So I've got a great one. This one we do very heavily in Colorado because that's where we've been based for so long. Definitely partner yourself with other events in your region. So many race directors we've worked with think of that as competition. They're not. You want to be their friend. So for example, all my events are in the fall. So they're in September, October, November, December. So I have no problem allowing other events that have events in February, March, April, May, throughout the summer to coming to our event. So what we do with about 5 or 6 different event directors in Colorado is we swap booths. So we will go to their events in the summer for free, and promote our events that are coming up in the fall, and vice versa. We then allow them to come to our event in the fall to promote their next spring or summer events. And sometimes we'll have up to 4 or 5 other events at our fall events promoting their summer events, if that makes sense.
Right. And that would be, I guess, the equivalent of doing like an in-kind sponsorship or something. You're not getting cash out of it, but you're basically getting potential registrations, which is as good as cash, I guess, because, other events show up in your event, you show up in other people's events, and it's like a cross promotion.
To me, as a race director, and again, not every race director feels that, is money saved is money earned. So if I can give a free booth to someone who's then going to come and bring 4,000 bottles of Rain Energy drink or 4,000 bags of chips, well, you need to take care of your athlete at the finish line. So better for me to get it free and just giving them some space at the expo than charging them. So we work with different races around the country that speak of that differently. Some of them definitely want some money up front. Others, yes, it is a high expense for them to feed food and beverages to the racers. So no problem doing 100% trade for a booth space in the expo for free food.
That's an interesting point. It's something that I also at times had to struggle with. When you have someone coming to you with an offer of something that is value adding for your event, right? Like free food or free, like nutrition product companies do it quite a lot. They approach events and they say, I'm going to give you free product and stuff. From your point of view and your experience in selling these spaces and these sponsorships, essentially, where do you draw the line? What's a good balance? Should you ask for money on top of the free product? Should you just take the free product and be happy with it? Like how far can you push that?
So you just used a word that intertwined with our conversation. You used the word sponsorship. There's a big difference. So if Cliff Bar calls me up and says, I just want a booth to come pass out bars. Okay, yes, we'll either give it to them for free. It depends what they're going to give. If they're going to give a free bar for each runner, probably most likely, yes. If I'm a smaller event and that's all they want, just some booth space that I'm already there at the event, I have my park, I have some open space on the grass, and it's going to make my event better, then yeah, or maybe just give them the booth for $100 or something, right, to cover your cost of some time, the table, a chair, whatever have you, if it's an outdoor event. But sponsorship, big difference. So if they're asking for, banner ads and banners up and PA announcements and e-blasting and logo on t-shirt, big difference, right? So we're here talking expo. If it's just for expo, me as a race director also, most of the time, yeah, it's going to be free or it's going to be very discounted for them to come to provide hundreds or if not thousands of dollars worth of product.
Okay. Makes sense. That's a very straightforward answer. So in terms of the size that these expos grow up to, for a small event, let's say, let's pick like 1,000. I mean, it's not really a small event, given that the average event is probably around the 500 mark. But, like we keep thinking of those events as being small. They're not. But, let's pick the example of a 1,000-person race or a 500-person race. How many of those spaces, those little vendor booths, would I look to have? Is there even a limit? Can I have as many as I can sell, or as many as I guess my expo area would support?
Yeah, you answered my question. So, how much space do you have? So if you have unlimited space, let's talk about small events first. Unlimited space, then typically an event that we work with will have just 5, 6, 7 vendors, right? So to get expo partners and attendees is also time consuming, which is what most race directors don't have. And they also don't have the database, right? Which is how my company got started, was it's all we do, right? So these companies, when we started, were like, hey, no problem. If you guys want to help, then more have at it. Go at it and go find some more vendors for us. Because the way we operate, which I should have explained, is we don't charge a fee for expo sales. We just take a higher commission. So there's no cost to the events that we work with. But over the years, we've reduced the number of events that we work with just because there's only a certain bandwidth of what you can handle. And then we do some expo management where, yes, we're actually hired buy the event to do everything. We design the maps. We make the itineraries. We're on site and making sure they show up and they know where to set up. We rent all the tables and chairs beforehand. So that's another whole side of business we only do for a small handful of events. Back in the day, we did it for 30 or 40 around the country. But now we're just more on the sales aspect of it. But it depends on how much work they want to put into it, right? So if they have the time, or some even small companies or events that we work with in US actually hire an expo salesperson, which we work with, right? Because they're our liaison for, here we have Cliff Bar coming, here we have Nike coming. We just let them know and they execute it for us. So small events, yeah, typically 4, 5, 6, 7 vendors, a local gym, their local retailer, maybe it's a spin gym or a workout gym, a local clothing company, a local brewery. It depends on how much work you want to put into it. So typically, small event, 5 to 10 vendors, medium-sized event, 15 to 30, and then, of course, our major marathons, anywhere between 50 to 150, right, where it's a big business for them.
And speaking of all of those local businesses, I mean, some of them are, I guess, obvious, or the kinds of people that you may also turn to for maybe a sponsorship. From your point of view, having done this for a while, how would you go about matching an event with potential candidate vendors for the expo?
We work more on a national basis, but we always explain to our local and smaller events, which we also do for the bubble runs as well. We target market local vendors within a 20-kilometer basis. That's one thing we've learned, which we can go into detail. Local vendors are people that can drive there, right? So it's that local retailer down the store, or a local gym or brewery. But in some of our markets, the A markets, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Colorado, is just, Denver's huge because there's so many companies based in those regions. And also, I could talk for hours about this one, there's local sales reps. So we deal with this even on a worldwide basis through distributors. So all these companies, let's say Nike, for instance, you might reach out to Nike, but the local reps have budget. We can get on this whole side thing, how we can go find people who want to get involved. We got a lot of, probably 20 to 25% of our business back in the day came from local reps. So what major companies, and again, I'll speak US specifically, started doing were two things. Sorry, I got ADD because I can just talk for hours. Companies used to do their budgets annually. They don't do that anymore, most of them. They'll have a budget and set it aside, but they'll spend it quarterly. So don't think in advance that you need to go run as fast as you can to get accepted for small, medium, and near large companies now to get their budgets because they spend it quarterly. Then what happened over the years is they handed the budgets and approvals to what events and expos they went to their local sales reps. So I got to know, again, we'll speak Colorado specifically, got to know all the reps in the area because you became friends with them and they got to know your event. They had the power and many times the money to spend to get involved with specific events. I'll use Brooks as an example. The Brooks rep in Colorado literally had a specific budget of like $25,000 to spend on what events he wanted to get involved with and go to. So kind of going across the boards, but getting to the major companies early. So you'd call, let's say you want to call up Nike or some of the running companies, ask them to get involved, connect you with their local rep and go grassroots and go local more than national, especially if you're an event that's under 5,000 people, stay local. But if you get above the 5,000, 10,000 people, then you're going straight to national because you're going to be charging more. And many of these larger companies have limits. I'll use Reign Energy Drink, for example. Their local person that manages that region is allowed to spend up to $1,000 per event to be part of an expo. But anything above that, it's got to go to headquarters in California. So if you're a smaller event, stick local, reach out local, and also for the smaller, retail companies that you want to go to in gyms, people don't like driving to events anymore. And we definitely learned that in Colorado. It's kind of that 1.5 hour limit. So stay within a 20, 30 kilometer distance from your event.
So you're saying, which is, I think lots of people would be positively surprised to hear, that basically national brands, they have allocations, they have budgets for investing, for taking out opportunities like the ones we're talking about at the local level. And you're saying that the person managing the purse strings is the local rep, and he has authority to come out and take a booth in your event. Even if we're talking, like Brooks and Nike and those kinds of people that lots of the smaller events may think are completely out of reach.
Yes, absolutely. Also, keynote, we get hired to help sell expo space. And so then many of our events we started working with, well, do you sell sponsorship? So we do very little of that. Why? Because all medium-sized to large companies, there is an entire event marketing person and an event marketing budget. So from whether there's a global marketing person or a national marketing person, most of the medium to large size companies, and the small ones too even, have a specific event marketing person. So when we make phone calls or reach out to companies, which I was even doing this morning here for all of our cycling events that we're doing around the world, I send an email out and said, hey, we have events we're working on. Can you connect me to your event marketing person? 90% of the time, they have one specific for event marketing, not media or sponsorship, because those are much more work, I guess, or just different. And so they have a specific person to speak to just for events.
That's another kind of like term I came across the other day. Is the event marketing person different to maybe someone whose role may be field marketing, like a field marketing person? Are they two different roles?
Yes, great question. A field marketing person, again, I'll use examples of Rain Energy Drink or Monster Energy Drink. And a new one we're just working with, won't mention the company name, but we reached out to them and they have regional marketing people that are specifically put into specific regions. So we called Rain Energy Drink, and they're like, okay, cool. Can you reach out to our 9 different regional marketing people we have in each regions? And then those people making the decision. So they're not sales reps because they're not doing any sales aspect. Their literal job, and this is more on food and beverage than any other brands. It's food and beverage that they're out there. And we reach out to each one of them and give them the list of the events we work on. And then they let us know what events they want to get with. And they have their own budgets too, like completely separate as well.
Okay, so as Greg has hopefully demonstrated so far, the key to a successful race expo and to a successful event more generally is that elusive thing, the race experience. So while your amazing race expo is taking place at the finish line, keeping people happy, how has your start line experience been? How smooth was your check-in, for example? Remember, your race experience starts the minute a participant walks into one of your check-in tents. So, did they check in seconds, or did they have to queue for half an hour in the freezing rain? Hopefully it's the former. And with race day technology from industry leaders Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up, it would be. With a race day check-in app from Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up that you can simply run on your phone, you can easily check in thousands of participants and seamlessly distribute bibs and swag without a hitch. And with Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up's dynamic bib assignment, people will be streaming out your check-in tent in seconds. And you will be saving on no-show bibs that you can now avoid, only handing out the bibs you need to the people who show up. Whatever order they show up in, whether their name starts with an A or a Z or anything in between. So, to learn more about the amazing Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up Race Day check-in app and all other Race Day suite tools, head over to runsignup.com. That's runsignup.com, and see what a smooth race day experience can mean for you and your team. Okay, now let's get back to the interview with Craig Mintzlaff. Next up, what really happens when a big brand decides to come out and join my race expo? going back to those big national brands and stuff. So let's say that I reach out to my local rep at Brooks, and they have a budget and they're interested in my event and they want to show up. What should I expect from someone like that? So if I have closed Brooks as one of my vendors for the expo, they'll show up, take up a 10 by 10 space or something, and then what? They'll put out some shoes. Like, what would they be looking to do on the day?
All right. So you brought up another whole topic. The first thing that any event should do before anything, when they launch their event, first thing, cycling, running, is to go find a retail partner. So important, because immediately the first question he's going to ask the Brooks rep, who is your running store sponsor? And Runners Roost or Boulder Running Company or whoever, because that's so important to them. They want to know, they're not going to sell on site. So their whole point is to close the loop, right? So their whole point is to be there, come to the event, show their shoes and say, oh yes, they are available at, Runners Roost running store. There's 10 of them here in Colorado. We're working that exact program right now. Like for the last 2 weeks, we've been working with Dick's Sporting Goods and Roadrunner Sports for our 140 events around the country, because several of our potential partners and sponsors and expo vendors have already asked that question. Who are you partnered with? So is that answering your question? I guess, what is he going to do? Yeah, people like that, they're not there to sell. They're there to promote. And that's why many times we'll also go get a grocery sponsor or grocery partner, right? So we've gone to Whole Foods, and even if it was just them to get involved to donate the apples or the bananas and have a booth at the finish line. We've done that for some events. They're like 5 blocks up the street, and they know, especially grocery, they know that their demographic is only 10 kilometers around their grocery store, right? And we know that our running race that's all our people are coming from within 20 kilometers. So that's how they can market. They come and they bring some bananas and apples and promote their grocery store. So it, again, helps close the loop on vendors and sponsors when you have retail partners. It's crucial.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. And it does answer the question very well. You're saying that basically, yeah, there's not going to be like a Brooks person there, like with a stack of shoes, selling shoes and, like taking your credit card details. Basically, they're going to be more like a high-end car dealership or something. You'll see there the kind of product that you might be interested in, and then they'll refer you to whoever your retail partner is, and they'll say, you can find the new Brooks Adrenaline or whatever in that shop.
And the large events that are listening to this podcast obviously know that, right? So you go, like Brooks, I believe, was New York Marathon years ago, and I heard once that Brooks did over $100,000 in sales over a 3-day period at the New York Marathon, right? So they're their official clothier and they're their official shoe. And so, however, and I've worked with companies, when I told you we do a lot of field marketing for different brands, is when you're going and buying those shoes from Brooks at the New York Marathon, it's not going to Brooks. It's running through some retail partner or retail sponsor. So when you see your credit card statement, it's not going to say Brooks Running. It's going to say ABC Running Store, right? So again, why it's crucial.
Right. Okay. And for those sponsors, when you want to approach your Brooks rep, or even the other types of vendors you may wish to have as part of your expo, your local chiropractor, your local, family lawyer even, or those kinds of people, what are you going to be pitching to them? So what are you selling those guys on? Particularly for people who are, maybe the Brooks rep, I mean, it's his job probably to be familiar with what a race expo has to offer and, what the whole like offering is around these kinds of things. But for other businesses and even the Brooks rep, what kinds of numbers would they expect to see, and what would they wish to be sold on to take part?
Broad question. So we're selling eyeballs, right? You're selling people attending. So everything's based off, and we can lead into this. One of the questions you had on our sheet was the cost, right? So we base everything off kind of a CPM. We definitely changed the market back in the day when we came into managing so many expos around the country. For some loved us, some hated us. Why? Because some realized they were completely selling their expo space too cheap, right? So we were working with the Boulder. Most people in the United States will know the Boulder 10K. It's actually the 8th largest running race in the world. They get just about 60,000 runners. It's a 10K race. And at the time when we were working with them, they were only selling their boosts for like $600 for the 2-day packet pickup and only for like $800 for the day of race. Now, as people kind of learned what they should really be charging, they charge $1,400 for the 2-day expo beforehand and $2,400 for just to be there on the day of race at the finish line in front of 60,000 people. So on a cost amount last to that basis is they don't want to, it can't be too expensive, right? So anything between $50 to $100 per thousand is kind of a number I wanted to throw out at you. Again, depends on the race director's goal though. So in our very start of our conversation, the goal was, and I believe as a race director also, my goal is not more the financial side of things, it's the experience. Because ultimately, as a race director, you want your racers to keep coming back year after year after year. And if they don't have a fun experience or think they got a great value or got something out of it, whether they came and got some free drinks and some free food or a free entry to go to the gym for the week, they may not come back, right? So they're there for the experience. So don't make it too expensive for them, and then make it easy for these reps and these people to come, right? Just it's quick, here's where you set up. Much easier for the smaller events, right? That are outside. The larger events with all the unions and indoor stuff, yeah, it's a lot of work. But just make it easy on them to get involved and be there and set up beforehand, pop up a tent and reach the people and get in front of them so people come to their booth.
And beyond the CPM, because I mean, definitely the CPM for your Boulder example is super attractive, particularly for endemic brands. But the CPM, unfortunately, people may be familiar, for instance, with Facebook ad CPMs, which can tend to be very, very low. And if you go to someone who's not very familiar with the Race Expo concept, they might think, for the same cost, I can be reaching all these many people on Facebook using Facebook ads, for instance. But I'm guessing you also want to sell this thing on the quality of the engagement, not only on the cost and the quantity of engagement that people will be getting out of it. The fact that you're there, that your target audience is in front of you, you can chat to them, you can engage at a richer and deeper level, right?
Yeah, and definitely know your demographics. They'll ask that a lot. So average now, though, and I see it because I also used to announce races and stuff in Colorado. It's crazy that about 60 to 70% now of all runners are females. I mean, I'm sure race directors hearing this on the podcast would agree with me. Also, and it's a shame because I ran my first marathon when I was 15. There's no more millennials. There's no kids. It's crazy. So we do kids races at all of our events because we do it more to give back and just get kids out there. But the average age now at some of these half marathons, 10Ks, and go on the tangent of triathlons are in the mid to high 30s in age. It's crazy. It's a shame that you don't see more millennials and 20s. They're busy playing video games or whatever they're doing. So definitely know your demographics because they're going to ask that, because we definitely go after women products as well, because that's usually majority of all of our events, especially the bubble runs that we work on, majority women. So we sometimes will, if it's a women-specific product and we only know 60, 70% of our vendor or attendees are women, sometimes we will give them a discount because we want them there, right? But we also know they're specifically only trying to reach the women market.
Right. And that's going back again to the balance between, yes, try to use the expo as a bit of a revenue earner, but also always keep in mind the race experience, right? How important that is and how much a vendor showing up, the right kind of vendor, can enhance the whole race experience for people coming to the race, right?
Yep, correct. Yep. And a good mix is nice. You got food and beverage companies, you got some local retailers, you have some local reps. Also, we didn't go down this tangent, but a local charity, right? Whoever you've teamed up with, you should definitely do that. That's just, second nature for everybody to give back to the community in some form or fashion, whether they're getting $1 per runner or 50 cents per runner. It's just giving back to the community. Plus, you can use that relationship to help market your event, right? So there's an event that I know of that actually was a marathon that actually had a charity for every single mile. So at the finish line, there were 26 booths all lined up for every single charity. And it gave people the opportunity online beforehand to where they wanted their dollar to go, what charity that they wanted to go to, and also go meet them at the expo. It made it more fun, right? So you got to go see all these different charity groups that many times were someone was there to that you would be wanting to benefit somehow or help out,
Do you find that now, with the proliferation of things like smartwatches and the fact that everyone carries a phone that can also pay, like they're all sort of like pay ready, do you find that maybe expos, I know we mentioned earlier that they're not really there for selling because people don't have their wallets on them or something, but that vendors can start thinking of the expo also as a place to actually sell, given that people sort of carry their wallets now on their watches or in their phones?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, it's definitely easier for people to do that now with Apple Pay and PayPal and different ways to do that. I even bring it up. We recently took a client to the Munich Marathon, and there was a company that we found in the UK that actually, again, trying to keep up with the technology. You and I are older. It's just trying to keep up with technology. They sent me this digital box, and I had no idea that technology had gone so far. It's a box that all I have to do is turn on, and it's automatically finds and connects. It's like a phone, technically, if you want to think about it, because it finds the internet. And now I've just created this little box that is a touch-free tap credit card taker right there on the spot. And I thought I'd bought the wrong one, and I got it, and I turned it on. I'm like, wait, it actually just connected to the internet, and it's taking wireless payments. So definitely, race directors need to keep up on technology constantly on how things are done at the expo, especially since people want to register for the event at the expo day of race, right? So that's kind of what most races do that nowadays, because so many people are procrastinators and make their decision 2 days beforehand. Oh, I'll run that 10K in 2 days, which race directors hate and love because they're paying twice as much to run the race, but it's also, you get too many of them at the expo on that morning. It's a lot of work.
And besides the cash, which is pretty straightforward, and the free product or the free service or the free experience, which I guess, as you were saying, it's either a cost saved or race experience enhanced. What other kinds of stuff could I be looking forward to from my Race Expo vendors to contribute or to bring on to the expo?
This is something that no one really does well enough, including myself, because it's time, right? You only have so much time, and you have to remind people. So, including my example I gave you with working with other races. So sometimes we've even swapped out e-blasting, right? So use your partnerships with these expo vendors to promote your event. No one does this well. No one. So, for example, if Runner's Roost, and they're good at it in Colorado. So Runner's Roost was my official retailer for 4 of my running races. So I put it on my schedule every 2 weeks was to send them an email to tell their event marketing person, who then told their social media person to, hey, make sure we send out an e-blast promoting the Monster Dash run that's coming up in 3 weeks that Runner's Roost is a sponsor of, and it helps you. So use your expo vendors for marketing, social media, and also for, if you're making flyers for your event, you should be distributed at all those running stores or that local gym down the street. Have them pass it out. Also, we constantly, again, social media can help you with all this stuff and just helping out, getting more exposure. Some of the events that we are involved with and we get our partners, we give them 4 to 5 free entries for their staff, right? So if you, again, I'll use a sports gym down the street. Well, those people aren't paid a lot, or they just, so it's a great added value. Hey, I'm going to give you 5 free ones. So then their staff can come and run the event, and then they market it and promote it, or they on social media. So again, my point is use your sponsors and your expo clients to help market your event through social media or through flyer distribution or through email blasting.
Right. And sponsors, you mentioned there, I mean, it's an obvious place to use the expo to activate some of those sponsorships. What if a sponsor, for instance, can't turn up or something? Would you put something on their behalf? Do you ever do that in an expo where, like maybe you want to help a sponsor, but maybe they can't travel or they can't attend? Or even, to be honest, with some sponsors, they can't even maybe see the value of it and you want to demonstrate to them that you can go the extra mile for them. Would you put up a booth on their behalf? Would you do that for someone like one of your sponsors who can't attend?
We've definitely done that before. Because especially now, you just opened up a whole can of worms. COVID-19, right? We can bring up, and we can also bring up the problem of staffing, right? In America, where just no one wants to work anymore. So we've done it for the food companies that we've worked with, the coffee companies we worked for. It's a lot of work. Like literally the day before an event, had a staff member drive 20 kilometers to go pick up a tent and all the coffee beans or coffee stuff that we need for the event. And then, believe it or not, we've purchased like 20 coffee urns and made the coffee at 2-3 in the morning so that it's there for them. Because again, it's the experience for the racers. Everyone asks for coffee in the morning, right? So it's amazing what I've done, and other people, I'm sure people listening to this podcast have done. I'm sure they have many stories of what they've done for expo people and vendors and sponsors to make them happy, right? So go that extra mile. Staffing wise, yeah, that's a huge issue. And before we jumped on this podcast, I wanted to bring that up. It's a huge problem. Like, these people would love to come to the event. So, for example, what we've done now with the bubble run is we are creating other ways of getting involved. If they still want to get involved with the event, but they can't be there. So we now do 3 e-blasts to all of our current runners leading up to the event. And we allow people to put in banners or text or promo codes and all that, because we send out, hey, don't forget your race is coming in 3 weeks. Don't forget your race is coming in 2 weeks. And then here's the week before, we'll say, here's where the expo is, packet pickups of these hours. And we will include partners, sponsors, even expo people's information inside these e-blasts. Then another option we have, pretty easy to do, is we are selling the sponsorship of the race bib. So I can't be there. I want the exposure. Okay, cool. We're charging like 10 cents per bib, depends. I mean, it's already a cost we have to incur. So if all I have to do is tell my guy in New Jersey, hey, add this logo to it. Pretty simple thing to do. Everyone should do that, right? It's a cost that you have, and it's for exposure of someone who can't be there. We don't put logos on t-shirts for all these bubble runs and black light runs, but we're now opening for this year or for next year the opportunity to pay to have you the only logo on the back of the t-shirt. So we're already making the t-shirt. Cost isn't much more, 10, 15 cents per unit that we need to do for the t-shirts. So we're now selling sponsorship for attendee or sponsors that can't make it to the event that way. And then we've also passed out, or will be passing out, postcards for clients that can't come. So that's an added value that's very simple for us to do at packet pickup. So when they pick up their t-shirt, we just put a postcard on top of it and hand it to them. So many different things you can do for people that want to get involved that you can do for them throughout. Much more sponsorship stuff more than expo, but yes, we have actually set up booths for clients at the expo for them, and sometimes just put a volunteer at the booth or leave it freestanding depending on what the product is.
That's super interesting. I think it's interesting that we stumbled into this, because essentially you're saying that, and the whole COVID situation makes this even more important, that basically you could be reducing one of the objections or the friction points with one of your potential expo vendors or sponsors attending by just telling them, listen, you help me out. You tell me, what you need out of the booth and stuff, and I'll put one of my people there. And I guess it also fits schedule and sort of like human resources wise, because you could put someone at the expo who's done doing something else during the race, right? I mean, it's at the end of the race. You can pick someone who did something and they're done with their shift. either from your team or a volunteer, and put them to man the expo. And then you tell the vendor that, you don't even have to be there. We'll take care of all of that for you.
Yeah, even whether it's definitely if there's product there, have a volunteer at the event because everyone will take more than we need to. But if it's just as simple as even for one of the other events, you're just popping up their pop-up tent, a table cover, postcards for their event. Don't do too many of them, right? I could tell you horror stories of just like so many. As a race director, you have so much to do already, which brings up a comment I want to make is that any event, no matter what size they are, should hire, whether it's just a friend, volunteer, as a person that's in charge of the expo. So one frustration I see or I've had, which is why, again, people bring us aboard, is we've gone to events for my events, right? And you show up, even if it's an event with 1,000 people and there's 10 vendors there, there's no one there in charge of the expo. Like, it's so unprofessional. Like, at least have one person that's there to make sure everyone gets checked in. It doesn't take long, right? They're there for only an hour and a half. They're just checking. Their setup is from 7 to 8:30, races at 9, right? So come set up your booth between 7. Come see Craig. He's going to show you where to set up. It'll make your event so much more professional. And usually we'll set the tables up in advance and then put their name on it. Or other ways we've done it, it's first come, first serve. You don't need to be that professional. I just don't make it's easy for them. When they show up, here's your parking pass, go park over there, drop your stuff off. It's just so much more professional that way. And won't cost you anything. Just even have a volunteer do it. That all he's got to do is volunteer for 2 hours of his time, and then he gets to go run for free, right? A lot of people do that. I get so many volunteers that come help us for like 2 hours beforehand, doing anything, even helping a vendor unload. And then they're done at 8:45. They go get in line and go run the 10K. So free labor, right? So then you have another person who just ran your race that's going to speak highly of it and promote it later and come back next year.
Yeah, makes sense. And actually, that's a great segue to the last bit I wanted to touch on, which is the actual expo itself and the layout and how you set things up and what an expo should look like. I guess first things first, how much space would I need for my expo? Is there a kind of rule of thumb that would connect, like how many vendors I might have to the size of the area that I'm going to need?
Yes. So broad question, broad answer. It all depends on how much space you have. I'm going to use an example only for an outdoor event, which is like 95% of events, and they're at a park or they're at some outdoor venue. So this is why many times the smaller events, 300 to a couple thousand, don't really need to do a pre-expo layout because you don't really know how many vendors you're really going to have leading up to the event, because you might end up having 4 or 5 new vendors show up or sign up just days before the event, right? Especially in Colorado and places around the world where the weather, you never know, right? So this is going to be different with COVID, right? So in the years past, we try to keep everything close and tight. So a couple bullet points. Close and tight because then it makes it seem full. We put tables in the middle of the expo because that's where people then congregate, sit, and eat and drink after the event. I put the packet pickup at the back of the expo, right? So everyone has to walk through the expo to even go back in the back to go pick up their bibs. Also, food and beverage post-event at the back of the expo. Many times we'll switch the packet pickup, right? The 10 by 20 or 10 by 30 that we have, and switch it from packet pickup. Now we just switched it to food. Right? So now everyone has to walk back through the expo again to get to the food and beverage in the back. So I'm an advocate of making it tight and narrow, which is not a COVID-19 thing anymore. So we try to keep at least 10 feet between each booth and not having it far away. I was recently at a expo for a marathon here in Germany, and it was horrible. They put our booths about 20, 30 meters away from the main foot traffic that everyone was coming into the stadium to get to their packet pickup. Like, it was so bad. All the vendors, there were like 15 of us vendors. We all wanted to move, and we couldn't believe we put them there because we probably only saw 20% of the foot traffic we normally should have seen had they just moved us like 20 meters closer to the main foot traffic of where everyone was going. So does that help with an idea of how to set it up?
Yeah, and it's sort of, it brings to mind images of how duty-free stalls are set up in the airport when you sort of like make yourself to the gate, right? Same principle. You need to get to the gate, and then, the whole way to the gate is lined with, like perfume shops and stuff like that, right? I mean, I guess it's same principle with the food stalls and making sure people go through the things you want them to go through to reach, to have a beer or have a hot dog or something.
Yep. And if you're forced to make the expo like in a round or a square design, still put some in the middle. We'll usually put a middle island of 4 booths, square 4 booths in the middle, just to kind of get people to flow back and forth. And then also mixing it up. Definitely don't put competitors next to each other, right? But so we'll force people to go over there and over there to go see different clients or freebies and all that kind of stuff. Some ideas that I need to throw into some of the race directors' heads here that we've done in the past is we've had a sponsor that you then were given a piece of paper, and all the vendors were given a punching. So if you went to the vendor and said hi to them or whatever, they could punch your punch card, and have you gotten 5 or 10, whatever number you want. If they go reach out to 5 of the vendors, they can then write their name and email address, put it in a hat, and all of our vendors, we didn't go in this whole topic, when you discount a booth, you should always try to get something in return. So let's say the gym down the street wanted to come, they don't have $400 to spend, you'd be like, all right, why don't we make it $200, and can you give me 5 coupons for 5 free spin classes or whatever, right? So now you have items that then you could give in the raffle. So when the people go meet all the vendors, turn in their card, put it in the box, pick out a winner, then they win something, right? So there's creative ways to use discounting to get people to stay longer, right? So a couple events we work on, we'll do prizes every hour. So it gets people to stay longer or give them something to do while they're hanging out waiting for their friends and family to finish. So those are fun things to do in the expo as well.
Excellent. Okay.
And I did want to bring up that music and an announcer is mandatory. Like I can't even stress that $200 or $100 or whatever it costs to have an announcer come will make your expo an event 100 times better. They can be PA announcements on what's going on at different vendors. They can keep people updated on food and where the bathrooms are, when the race is starting. Mandatory. That's, again, just in even any expo, have music going and an announcer. It's worth every penny.
Interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. So basically you're saying the announcer, I mean, how would that work? Because if people are sort of like coming through the finish line all the time, and the announcer is there to shout out names of people finishing and stuff, would they also be announcing on the expo?
Yes. So I never mentioned this, but I've announced over probably 150 events. I kind of got into it because I talked too much and people started hiring me to do it. So I've even been to events, larger ones or more crowded ones. Recently, last year in Colorado, we did a bike race. We had two announcers. We had one just at like the finish line announcing people thing coming out. And then we had an expo announcer that had different music and then PA announcements that we were doing on what's going on at different vendors and giveaways and things to go do at different expo vendors around the expo. So that's more for larger events, but I'm also not an advocate. You don't really need to have an announcer there announcing every race finisher. It's all about the vibe and the music and keeping it fun. So like our Monster Dash race that we do in Colorado is I spend hours downloading different scary music and sounds and stuff. And then we use the announcing for very few of the people coming across the finish line, but more to keep everyone informed of what's going on. I've been to even me, myself, running major marathons that where are the bathrooms and where's the expo and where's packet drop off for your goodie bag or for your bag for your extra clothes. Like that's what you need an announcer for. If you want to make your event much more professional, whether it's 500 people or 5,000, have an announcer there that's keeping everyone informed of what's going on throughout the event and also promoting your expo sponsors and partners throughout the day.
Super. Yeah, we're going to be doing a full episode on the podcast on race announcers. Definitely a piece that fairly undervalued, I think, in terms of what it can contribute to an event. So I think that's been amazing. There's so many things here to look at for people interested in either setting up an expo or taking their expo to the next level. In terms of people maybe reaching out to you with some thoughts or some follow-ups, or maybe they need some help with selling expo space, how can they reach you?
Yeah, you can reach me at craig@endurancesportsmarketing.com. Whatever you want to fill out some information to on your podcast website, all that too, they can reach out to me. But I am in Europe, so I'm open to people that want to reach out to me for some suggestions, ideas, cost-saving ideas, expo ideas. I've been doing this for so long that I really enjoy helping people. Like, I really enjoy making events better. It's been my life for the last 25 years or more. So love doing it. So anyone, reach out at any time if you want have any questions.
Excellent. Okay, Craig, thank you very, very much for your time today. It's been super informative. I think we couldn't have had a better expert to speak on the topic of race expos.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much to everyone listening in. And we'll see you all on our next podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode on Race Expos with my guest, Endurance Sports Marketing Group's Craig Mintzlaff. You can find more resources on anything and everything related to race directing on our website, racedirectorshq.com. You can also share your questions about race expos, sponsorships, or anything else in our Facebook group, Race Directors Hub. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe or leave a review on your favorite player. And also check out the podcast back catalog for more great content like this. Until our next episode, take care and keep putting on amazing races.